What's happening now is not what I would describe as efficient. I've not seen anything be built or simplified or any actual transactions that are leading to efficiencies. This is just cutting and chaos.
Educate, inform, inspire. The Dan Parsons Show, a podcast that lifts up instead of tearing down.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Dan Parsons Show. I'm your host, Dan Parsons. Hey, coming up today, a Nebraska exclusive. Former DOGE insider Merici Vinton describes her close-up experience with DOGE and the highly secretive, bulldozer-like approach to shrinking the government. But before I introduce Merici, a reminder to hop on over to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Okay, here's my exclusive interview with former DOGE employee Merici Vinton. Enjoy. Hey, it is my pleasure to welcome the exclusive first interview in Nebraska, Merici Vinton, to the Dan Parsons Show. Merici, welcome.
Thank you. It's so exciting to be here.
Well, we're going to get into your background and why you're here, but I'll just give a short little start to our discussion here. You have such a rich history. It's hard to capsulize it in a couple paragraphs, but some of the highlights. You interned at the U.S. Embassy in Moscow. You got your MBA. You served as a senior advisor to the IRS commissioner. You started a technology and web team for a brand new federal agency, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And I want to unpack that story in a moment. You're currently, if I'm correct, if I have my notes right, a senior fellow at the Federation of American Scientists. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. That's my introduction. And like I said, I'm so grateful that you take some time. You've been getting some national media very deservedly. And so I want to unpack this very important story. But before we do that, our producers have come up with a set of 4 fun questions in order to get to know my guests. It's a little thing that we call Dan's 4 and you're 1. So I'm going to ask you 4 questions and you get to fire one back at me. You ready?
Go for it.
Okay. Where did you grow up?
I grew up on Spring Lake Ranch, which is a ranch in the Sandhills of Nebraska out in the Panhandle. So 30 miles southwest of Gordon. Beautiful, beautiful part of the state.
It is a beautiful part of the state.
The best.
My grandparents lived in Thedford.
Oh, no way. Yeah, it was really special. Like we ran bed and breakfast to a cattle ranch. I rode a horse to my one-room school. So lots of fond memories from my time out there. And then I moved to Lincoln after my parents passed away. I moved to Lincoln when I was 11.
And you have a well-known a person that you have a relationship with here in Lincoln that is a big fan of this show. Do you want to reveal that to our audience?
Yeah. So when I moved to Lincoln, I moved with Nick and Ann Cusick and their 3 daughters. So really lucky to be brought up by such a great family who are now my family as well. Yeah,
it's a beautiful story. And Nick, that's how we met. So Nick is a big fan of this show and I'm a big fan of Nick's. And he happens to be a huge fan of yours and your family. So anyway, thanks for making that connection. Okay. I swear these won't take as long as I did. Question number 2. As you were growing up in the Sandhills, what was your dream job as a kid?
My dream job as a kid, I wanted to be a campaign manager for political campaigns. And I did work in campaigns for 1 season. And I actually found out I loved the government side better. So I was close-ish, but just a little bit off and found my spot in government.
Good for you. Yeah. Well, I did similar. I've done both sides of that fence. And the campaign side it's gotten a lot more brutal as we'll talk about here in a little bit as far as working in federal government. Okay. Question number 3. And you can answer this any way you like. I get lots of different answers to this question. The most famous person you've ever met?
It's goodness gracious, that's a great question. Obviously, as a Nebraskan, I'm like Tom Osborne. I would have to say, so when I worked on that campaign, I got to interact with a lot of celebs. Maya Angelou was at the top of the list. Ooh. Yeah. And Usher. We got to do a little video with Usher as well. So I was previously a big fan of Usher and then still am. So both of those were pretty big celebrities for me.
I'd say that's a pretty darn good list.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. Very good. The last one of these fun questions. Well, hopefully all of our questions are going to be fun, but they're going to be a little more serious. Question number 4. What was the first concert you attended?
Billy Dean, the Sheridan County Fair and Rodeo in Gordon, Nebraska. So every year, that was like the highlight of the year, was the 4-H and rodeo, the 4-H County Fair and the rodeo was the best part of the year.
Nice. Yeah, those are big dang deals. They still are, those county fairs across Nebraska. That's
so cool. Fun.
Yeah. Okay, you get to fire one back at me.
Okay, what is your favorite Nebraska lake? Do you have one?
Oh, that's easy. Oh, absolutely. I have one. But formative years, I was born here in Lincoln, grew up in and around Lincoln. My family moved to Ogallala about middle school age. And so I graduated from high school in Ogallala. So Big Mac, Lake McConaughey, became my playground for those years in high school. And I tell you what, as a high school kid growing up in Ogallala, having Lake McConaughey was, let's just put it this way. I'm thankful there was no social media back then.
It is such a special, it is so beautiful. It's definitely my favorite as well. It's such a beautiful spot.
Oh, it's like being at the ocean.
It really is. Yeah.
Oh, the hours and hours I spent at Lake McConaughey. Wonderful, wonderful memories. Okay, let's dive into this. Maybe start with a little bit of background and fill in some of what I didn't in my introduction of your path to Washington and your path to this agency that became DOGE. I'll turn over the mic to you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have always been interested in government. Both of my parents and then Nick and Ann were very involved in politics and in government. And so it was always something that was really important to me, as not just an activity, but impactful to the community and our role in the community. So I first joined the federal government in July of 2010. And it was just after the financial crisis of 2008, and Congress created this new federal agency called the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I was one of the first employees there, stood it up from day zero we really got an opportunity to think about, what is the legacy that we want to leave behind in this institution? How do we want to really kind of build a new tech team, really think about what it is that we deliver to people, not just, what it is that we do behind the scenes, but how can we interact as a regulatory body in a way that is responsive to people. It was a really exciting opportunity. It was a really exciting agency. And it's now, it's got an incredible team of people. Unfortunately, it's a different context now. It's definitely something that's been under fire from the Trump administration. But so in 2010, that's what we did. I moved to London in 2012, and then I came back in April of 2021 to join the U.S. Digital Service. I was at the U.S. Digital Service for almost 4 years, and on January 20th, the president signed an executive order that turned the U.S. Digital Service into the U.S. DOGE service. And so that was a very different kind of overnight experience for me and my coworkers.
Fascinating. Okay. So then catch us up. And again, I know you've had several national media interviews that I've been following, and I know a lot of other people have too. And you're speaking out. I don't think we're calling you a whistleblower. You're not blowing the whistle on anything. Maybe you do refer to yourself as a whistleblower. But give us that experience that you had when things started to change.
We had absolutely, so my USDS colleagues, the U.S. Digital Service is a team that was sitting inside of the Office of Management and Budget in the White House. It is a team of people who are all very mission driven, who came to government to make things easy for people to do. At the heart of what my colleagues at the U.S. Digital Service would do is really think about the users. So if you design a good form, then it's less likely that people are going to need your help or follow up or call the hotline. So really, we wanted to make sure that all of the things that we did were both user-friendly, but that user-friendliness and that experience would also make it more efficient for people on the back end, for government employees in the back end. So that was the kind of team that I worked for and worked with for 3 years.
And again, I'm sorry to interrupt, but again, just to set the tone, those are all catchphrases and language that we've been hearing now for the past several months since President Trump re-entered the White House. But you were thinking of those things before then. You were thinking of how to make government more efficient and streamline things.
Yeah, absolutely. Most of my colleagues, none of us thought that the status quo was particularly working for anyone, for people, for government itself, and for us trying to make change within government. And so we were all set out to do things. And you did that work through collaboration, through building trust with your agency partners. The project that I ran for the majority of my time at USDS was a free tax filing product. So in 25 states this year, people can file their taxes for free online directly with the IRS. Great example of an idea that was big, ambitious, and scary. The type of thing that, frankly, I think government should do, right? And we did it through building trust. We did it through, we didn't need to fire tens of thousands of people to do that, to accomplish that mission. We didn't break any laws. We had a lot of policy and procedure that was pretty frustrating at times, but we found a way through it. And there is a way to do really difficult and big things. And that's what our team did for that period of time. And since USDS's inception in, I think, 2015. So it was a really great team.
So then what?
Yeah. So on January 20th, we were stunned. We had no idea that this was going to happen. That evening, my colleagues and we all received invitations for meetings the next day. We were told everyone on our new team was excited to meet with us. And so on the first day of the administration, we all showed up for 15-minute interviews with DOGE or people representing DOGE. They only identified themselves with their first names. And we were all asked kind of a fairly specific set of questions. Some people got different types of questions, like who would you fire? But by and large, everyone was asked, what makes you exceptional? What was your favorite thing that you did in government? And then how do you feel about DOGE? And who are your favorite teammates? So I've been through a lot of job interviews before. I've never been asked questions like that.
Yeah, you've been in the private sector. You've been in academia. You've been around the block a few times. Yeah.
Yeah, and typically when you're doing it, something is difficult. I mean, government is complex, and when you're doing something, and it's complex, and it also operates at a scale. The federal government operates at a scale that that's hard to get your head around. And so that's why it's so complex, because you're doing things that can impact 330 million people. And so it was a pretty brief conversation with a set of people, from DOGE. And we didn't know what was going to happen after that. We had absolutely no idea.
We may have to do some editing here because I didn't think of putting this in my notes. So help me stumble through this. There's been at least one individual identified here in Nebraska, a young gentleman who was part of the DOGE leadership. Mm-hmm. Did you interact with that? And I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. I may need to go back and do this, but
no, I've never interacted with him before.
Okay. All right. So these people that came in to interview you, first of all, very unorthodox management style to begin with. And it seems like it was built to be intimidating. It was built to be cruel. It was built to have an outcome of really, like I said, very unorthodox and very cruel method of, I don't care if you're in the private sector or the public sector. That's not how you motivate people to do well. And so anyway, just talk a little bit more about then what happened next. What were the next steps after those interviews that you went through?
Actually, nothing happened for a while, and USDS or US DOGE service became very rudderless. There was no direction or leadership. That plays out in a number of ways in your day-to-day experiences. Sometimes you're working on a project and you need another teammate, or you need to have your travel approved, and there was nobody to do it. And effectively, we were all just kind of banding together, but fundamentally, we had no idea what those interviews were about and whether or not it meant that we were keeping our jobs. We all assumed our jobs would be gone by the end of the week. And so we were effectively living pay period to pay period, just not knowing. And then on February 14th, on Valentine's evening at 8:00, everyone, 43 of my teammates were fired immediately. They were removed from all systems. I was out to dinner with my husband and I had turned off my phone, and, he was like, Merici, we're in this cool restaurant, let's take a photo. Turned on my phone and just the notifications were crazy.
Wow.
And, I didn't have my work phone. And so I had to ask my coworkers, like, can you check in the systems? That's how people found out if they had a job or not. And it was a very, it was a very stunning turn of events on a Friday night. It was a holiday weekend. And then on that following Tuesday is when kind of a new DOGE leadership came in to run our team meetings. And so that's kind of like it transitioned to this new leadership.
So you were not removed from you were not fired initially.
Correct.
And I mean, those are people that you'd worked with, colleagues. That had to be, for anyone, that's a shocking turn of events. And so how did people react to that? How did they deal with that? And again, you were in the leadership role, and I assume you felt some responsibility for those people.
Yeah, it was devastating. And, I joke that since we started out this conversation talking about my biography, I'm not really great at goodbyes. And, that since January, it has been an endless series of goodbyes, since designed to help me get over my own dislike of them. It was devastating. And, my coworkers they weren't given a reason for why they were fired in that way. And then moving forward, a lot of those projects that they were working on were no longer viable. And so a week after, I forget the exact time, about a week and a half to 2 weeks after that, 21 of my teammates also resigned, kind of as one group, because they didn't want to be a part of that. And also their projects weren't viable. And so it was hard to be told that, by new DOGE leadership that, the remaining team, you matter and your projects matter, when in reality, a lot of those projects were not viable. And we also feel that our teammates matter too.
So you ended up resigning.
Correct. Not in that group. I resigned later. Yeah.
Right. So in that interim, in that period, in addition to just crazy emotional, probably financial concern for not only your colleagues, but maybe even for yourself, what was the work that was being done? What were you able to continue to accomplish in your role?
So at that point, I did have a large USDS team that was working on this direct file project. We were in the middle of filing season.
Yeah.
And, you have thousands of people in your app at any given second. And so we really had something to focus on. And my job was to make sure that that team had the capacity and the space to do their job and to try to keep the noise away, although it was really hard to focus. And so fundamentally, what I was really trying to do was both to provide, some top cover, some space for that team, as well as make a case for direct file to DOGE, this is a product that is a startup in government. It is an in-house team of technologists, many of whom are also from the private sector, who came to government to do something pretty difficult and pretty incredible. And the thing is that users loved it and really loved direct file. And, our Net Promoter Score, which is basically an index of how much people like it, is 12 points higher than Apple's. And so it was a really loyal and happy user base of direct file users. And so those were the stories we were trying to tell and to convey, is that this is what you say you want. More technologists from the private sector, more people that come into government and use their tech skills to do this.
Yeah.
This is the team that's doing it.
Before we get to the outcome, or what AP has reported just last week of that program, I'm just curious. I know a lot of our listeners, we have a diverse audience here on the Dan Parsons Show. I come from a conservative Republican background. I don't consider myself very conservative in what is defined today as the Republican Party. But, I came from I was a Reagan Republican. I know a lot of our audience considers themselves birthed out of that movement. And so efficiency and being able to, whether it's private sector or public sector, to be able to be efficient and be watchful of taxpayer dollars. I know that's an important a quality that people look for in government. And so what do you say to those people who are still trying to defend this chaotic reorganization? That's what it is, a reorganization of our federal government. What do you say to those people, having been in the inside and seeing it up close? Just where are we at, and how can we have hope that there's maybe something that can be salvaged and still hold on to some of those traditions of efficiency in government under this new leadership?
Yeah, so I too was a former Republican. I think I was like the state teenage Republican chair. So I understand that set of values and those set of principles. What's happening now is not what I would describe, also somebody who's done consulting, as efficient. So a lot of the people that have been fired, not my USDS colleagues, but in other agencies across the federal government, are actually just on admin leave. So which isn't great for them, but they're getting paid to do nothing. So I'm not sure what sort of efficiencies this team is looking for. Furthermore, when I think about making cuts to government, you really need to know what it is that you're trying to achieve and what it is that agency does. I don't get the sense that the teammates that are on there, or the teams that are on the ground, fully grasp the organizations that they're working in or their mission. And it's actually simply just about the cutting. So I would argue the definition of efficiency here, and I've not seen anything be built or simplified or any actual transactions that are leading to efficiencies. There's not a single example that I have seen. So I would actually challenge kind of the definition that this is efficiency, when actually I don't think that this is efficiency. I think this is just cutting and chaos. And one other example of things that I'm kind of upset are being cut now is just a ton of cancer grants, like funding for cancer. Yeah. That is not a short-term thing. I shouldn't expect to see results. And I'm not an expert here, but I'm guessing I shouldn't expect to see results overnight on that. But that is something that happens over years, months, years, and decades. And that is research that supports not just Americans, but the global population benefits from that. So I don't think it's very efficient to set that back years and decades. So I challenge the question that this is efficiency.
Yeah. Do you consider yourself a whistleblower?
No, I'm just seeing what I've saw and what I experienced.
Yeah. Let's go back to the agency that you helped start, the digital service in partnership with the IRS.
I didn't help start the USDS. I joined a few years after their inception, but yes, go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Associated Press reported just last week that the Trump administration plans to eliminate direct file program. And again, you've already talked about your feelings about that program and how popular it was and how efficient it was. Any idea of why? I mean, it just seems to be the opposite of what they claim to be trying to accomplish in rethinking what the federal government is.
Yeah, I don't really have an answer for why, unfortunately. When throughout the conversations, there seemed to be some alignment across, we want more tech talent in government. We want to do, this seems interesting. But fundamentally, I think it just became another line item on an Excel spreadsheet of cuts. That's how I feel about it. That's how I feel like the conversations went. Were very transactional, not about the value to the taxpayer, not about the fact that people spend over 9 hours and $160 paying their taxes. Our first ever tax filer, and this is a public story, so I'm not violating her privacy. She chose to share it. She has 3 kids and could use our product. So, not the most simple of tax situations, but also not the most complicated. She saved $400, a year, and she's a single mom. So there's countless stories where people volunteer that information. So there was never that much of an interest in the taxpayer benefit, nor was there much of an interest in the IRS benefit. So I see direct file as it's the future front door, right? You can build multiple different taxpayer-facing services around that. Number one. Number two, it's also kind of this really great team, super talented, that can help you really think about how you do your modernization efforts. And it's an in-house team. And there was never really that interest. So I think it just became a line item.
Wow. Well, and that's a really good analogy or a story about how it really was designed in helping people who need that service. And if we're looking out for the little person, that seems to me it's another example of how we're looking out for the millionaires and the billionaires and people who own large tax preparer services instead of that single mom who's trying to save a few dollars to help her family. So.
Yeah, it's just a devastating, it's just unnecessary. There's lots of options. There's lots of different products in the market. Direct file is that great thing for people that wanted, it was so quick and so easy for people to use and free. And so it was just this really great benefit that I think a lot of people really loved and were passionate about. So it is a major bummer for our team, for the people that used it, and I would say even for the IRS and tax administration, because that was a very cool new thing that the IRS had done.
I'll try to start wrapping up here. It's a fascinating interview, Merici. Thank you for your time and insight. What role does Congress have in this problem, in this challenge? I mean, and I had the dean of the law school on last week talking about immigration policy and so a lot of people are suggesting that we're at a constitutional crisis in that field, and a lot of people are suggesting, hey, we've kind of forgot the role of government when it comes to Congress, setting laws, setting budget, that then the executive branch gets to fulfill. Any thoughts on how we can start having some balance in this government and having, anyway, just your thoughts on Congress's role in all of this mess?
What I don't understand about what's happening right now is how organizations can just be shut down. Organizations that have been set up by Congress or statutory mandated. And then you have to go through this long, protracted court process, which is wildly inefficient on all the branches to adjudicate that. But fundamentally, the Department of Education, it was established. It exists.
Yeah.
You might not like how it runs. And so there are things that within that organization that, you want to do to make sure that it's more efficient. But fundamentally, those grants, they pay for, the special education program in Lincoln, Nebraska, or that park or that zoo in rural Western, well, there's not a zoo in rural Western Nebraska, but, it pays for these programs that you might not know came from the federal government. You might not know that playground came from a grant, but that's how our system's designed. And so without kind of having a vision for where it should be going, it's just a cut. And what happens? Where does that money go? So I've always wondered, what is the role of Congress? Because that money is not getting out the door. And so there's just a lot here that's happening, kind of chaotically, really quickly. And I wouldn't mind understanding how that money is actually going to get to people. And if Congress can help do that, that would be great.
We'll keep asking those questions, Merici. I think that's a very good insight of where we're at. This is a difficult time. I don't think a lot of people who voted for this administration really understood what the ramifications were going to be. And again, I think we all agree. We want efficiency. We want a government that runs on time and is responsible to our taxpayer dollars. But it just seems to me, and I'll editorialize again, I've got the microphone, I'm paying for it. So it just seems like it's about cruelty and bullying. And I don't know that a lot of people necessarily signed up for that. So anyway, hey, what's next for you? You have some extra time on your hands now for your family and get to travel. And I know you're still doing some things, but what's next for you?
Oh, it's been great. I've been going to more soccer practices. I'm loving it. So right now I'm a senior fellow at both Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley, and the Federation for American Scientists. And with, what I'm really looking to do is think about how do we rebuild again? What is government? What is a functional government? So what is, if you take that direct file approach and you apply it to more government services, because I remain optimistic and hopeful. I think we have to, that government will be able to deliver these things again in the future. And so what does that look like? And that's what I'm working on right now.
Very good. Merici Vinton, thanks for your time. Thanks for your leadership in our government. I'm sorry it didn't work out.
I mean, it's my situation. I feel like it's nothing compared to what's going on. So it's a lot.
Holy smoke. What a story. Thanks so much, Merici, for joining us today for this Nebraska exclusive. And thanks to friend of Dan, Nick Kusick, for the introduction. Thanks also to our producer, Chase Porter, and to Penology Tech Solutions for their technical help and equipment, and Kim Remington, Parsons Public Relations Director of Operations. And most importantly, thanks to each of you for tuning in. It really does mean a great deal to me. Okay, that's today's show. Thanks for tuning in. Now go do good things. I'm Dan Parsons.